breaking news out of Hawaii this morning. A deadly fire in a high-rise building not far from legendary Waikiki Beach in Honolulu.
Yeah, this fire coming just weeks after that lethal inferno in London that claimed about 80 lives. Horrifying images such as these broadcast around the world. And this morning in Hawaii, big questions about what started the fire and why there were no sprinklers in that building.
Overnight, at least 3 people killed in this 5-alarm apartment fire in Honolulu, just 10 minutes from Waikiki Beach.
The next thing we know, the smoke just billows out. Windows are being broken, glass is flying all over.
Wow, you guys, this is crazy.
The fire breaking out on the 26th floor of the Marco Polo building and spreading. Residents watching as flames and smoke engulfed their homes.
And then it jumped to the 27th floor. And then it jumped to the 28th floor, and that's when I said, I'm out of here.
More than 100 firefighters on scene, evacuating some residents and instructing others to shelter in place.
The stairwell was so full of smoke, you couldn't breathe, you couldn't see. Even the fireman got down on his hands and knees and was huffing and puffing.
12 people injured, 4, including 1 firefighter, transported to nearby hospitals in serious condition.
And I heard 3 or 4 women's voices screaming, constant screaming, just screaming. I mean, it was terrifying.
This fire similar to the deadly inferno that consumed Grenfell Tower in London a month ago, killing about 80 people.
I think we were all feeling nervous, worried, concerned, a little freaked out.
Investigators say this high-rise in Honolulu did not have sprinklers since building codes didn't require them when it was built in 1971.
So many questions about Grenfell hang in the air. The definitive answers are many months away. The public inquiry hasn't even decided its terms of reference yet, which questions it will investigate.
I was here covering the fire on the day and have followed the story ever since. And one thing that has made Grenfell seem very different to me, feel different from a lot of other similar disasters, is how widespread and how strong is the view that the authorities are lying to us about what happened here.
At the heart of this view is the question of how many people died in the fire. That number is established by the police. Their current figure is 80. But is it really more than that? And if so, are the police, the government, the fire service and the media all colluding in a cover-up to downplay this disaster's true death toll?
What news media outlet are you from? BBC. That's what I'm saying. So you're saying BBC, who, if you're not going to report the right numbers, there's no point in you being here. There's no point in you being here because all you're doing is angering the people.
I and many of my colleagues have had encounters like this one, filmed the weekend after the fire.
58 dead. People throwing their children out of the windows. And there's 58 dead. You can see firsthand that there's more than 58 missing posters on the walls around here. With the voice of the government.
The media seen as in collusion with the powerful who want to suppress the truth.
Better just move. We've got social media. We've got social media out here. We don't need the mainstream media. You're lying. You're lies are dormant. You're a bunch of liars.
Theresa May has delayed publication of what's being described as an explosive report into racism in the UK. The study, ordered almost a year ago, looks into how public services, including the NHS and police, treat people from different ethnic backgrounds. Critics say the delay is to protect the Prime Minister due to the weakness of her current position. Downing Street insists it's giving the government time to react to the findings.
This is hugely important, which is why we are taking the time to get it right and ensure we can act on the findings. We remain committed to addressing these issues head-on and will be publishing the results of the audit in the autumn.
If you're an American who goes on planes, chances are you've sat at an airport gate and been forced to watch CNN. Not Fox, not a sports channel, not a game show, CNN. There's a reason for that, and it's called CNN Airport Network. It launched back in 1991 when the Gulf War was going on. CNN covered that war relentlessly, televising a brand new level of fear and violence. But apparently, just being in everyone's homes 24/7 wasn't enough for CNN's Gulf War storytelling, so they launched CNN Airport Network, which actually pays airports to play CNN in their terminals. Through this program, CNN actually started paying airports so that they could present their version of what was going on in the Middle East to people waiting for planes. And that's because CNN thinks you, an American waiting for a plane, is exactly whom they want to reach. According to CNN Airport Network's sales brochure, which anyone can download from the internet, You are a, quote, valued demographic. They think you're upscale and influential with a median age of 45. They think you make lots of money and do lots of business, which makes you valuable. But the best part about you, maybe, to CNN is that you are captive. As in, you're stuck at the gate and can't go anywhere, so you have to watch their stuff. This is all in their brochure. So it pays for them to pay the airports because then they can throw their messages at you, their captive target demographic, and then you can help them spread their message too. And apparently CNN thinks it pays off because they're now paying lots and lots of airports. CNN Airport Network now airs in 45 airports across the country, in over 2,000 gates. It also airs in baggage claim areas, ticket counters, in business centers, in club rooms, food courts, at customs. Everywhere they can nail a flat screen, they do. And then they air CNN Airport Network.
Attorney General Jeff Sessions gave a speech this week to a group of Christian lawyers, a group called the Alliance Defending Freedom, the ADF. It concerns itself mostly with protecting religious liberty, and that's pretty much what the Attorney General talked about when he spoke to them. But that is not at all what the press reported. Here's the headline from ABC News. Quote, Jeff Sessions addresses anti-LGBT hate group. Over at NBC News, there was this. Jeff Sessions tells hate group DOJ will issue religious freedom guidance. You would have thought it was a cross burning, which of course was the entire point of those headlines, to give you the impression that it was. In fact, the Alliance Defending Freedom takes positions that are not so very different from the ones Barack Obama ran on in 2008, or that Bill and Hillary Clinton publicly espoused throughout the 1990s. How did this get branded a hate group? Well, by the Southern Poverty Law Center, of course, a totally discredited but extremely rich left-wing organization that for decades has tried to shut down legitimate debate by labeling ideas it disagrees with as hate speech. Among the organizations it has designated a hate group, the American College of Pediatricians, hardly the Klan. But thanks to the Southern Poverty Law Center, they are now in the same category as the Klan in many news stories. Deeply dishonest and unfair, but there's a bigger point. At stake here is one of the most basic questions of all. Who decides what we get to talk about? What should you be allowed to say in public? What should your kids be allowed to learn in school? Which ideas are legitimate and which ideas are so dangerous we must suppress them?
Two close confidants of Pope Francis have written an article in a Jesuit journal that strongly criticizes some American religious supporters of President Donald Trump for their fundamentalist views, which the authors say demonize others and create fear and hatred. The article, in the Vatican Review journal La Civiltà Cattolica, says some American evangelicals and Catholics have become a community of combatants who seek to impose a xenophobic and Islamophobic vision that wants walls and purifying deportations.
A pork ban on kindergarten menus is stirring controversy in the Austrian city of Salzburg. The rule has been in force for 5 years, but only came to light last week after parents filed a request with the mayor's office. They were told the decision was made on health grounds, but also to meet the needs of Muslim children.
Parents in Austria have got beef with the authorities after pork was given the chop from kindergartens. It's been missing from menus for 5 years. But now it's been spotted, Austrians are in a stew over it. The authorities claim children simply prefer chicken and carrots.
The dish was dropped due to health reasons, among other things, the needs of Muslim children.
But that's one line that's left a non-sweet, all-sour taste in parents' mouths. And those polls say they now strongly oppose the decision. Despite the mayor's claim there's been no official decree, it's still news some are finding difficult to digest.
We heard some contrasting opinions from Christian Ebner of the Chamber of Commerce in Vienna and Mohammed Shafiq of the Ramadan Foundation.
I cannot really see a reason why the mayor of Salzburg is denying Austrian children access to normal Austrian pork dishes. Pork dishes are part of our culture. If somebody wants to live here, actually, they should respect our culture. There's the one side who thinks we should pursue a kind of appeasement strategy to accommodate Muslims in Europe and to make sure that they feel like at home, and others who think, wait a minute, this is Europe, this is our country, these are our countries, we are not Muslims, we want to keep our identity, so this is part of a major political conflict.
Muslims are not alien to societies. They're not alien to Germany or France or the United Kingdom or Russia. And anybody who tries to divide communities, anybody who tries to perpetuate this hatred, inherent hatred that we see, I think should be called out for what it is. It's racism and xenophobia against the community.
We start in India, where few things are as contentious as its cattle industry. Now, earlier this year, Prime Minister Narendra Modi suspended the trade of buffaloes, camels and cows for slaughter. But the Supreme Court has put that ban on hold. That decision could have a major impact on India's surprisingly valuable meat and leather industry. Now, India is the world's fourth largest producer of beef, behind Brazil, the EU and China. The country is also the biggest exporter of beef. Last year, it shipped 500,000 tons worth $4.5 billion to 65 countries. Now, also last year, and for the first time in its history, India earned more from the export of buffalo meat than it did from basmati rice. More than 4 million people work in India's leather industry and produce around 1 billion pairs of leather shoes each year.
Artificial intelligence is making its way into the global sex market. While some say the sex robots are the next step in evolution, many experts fear that the lack of guidelines and regulations can lead to some alarming consequences. RT's Trinity Chavez has that story.
From delivery drones to automated cars, now there's robots you can have sex with. They're known as sex bots, and while it may revolutionize sex for some, these lifelike dolls have sparked a global debate about moral and legal ethics.
Sex is one of the most fascinating things in the world.
They look like us, talk like us, and they even move like us. These life-size silicone dolls are being created with areas to look and feel as lifelike as possible. Just 4 companies in the U.S. currently produce sex robots, and they can cost a pretty penny. The average doll price is around $5,000, but can go all the way up to $50,000 depending on what kind of accessories you want. Meet the Harmony android prototype from Abyss Creations. She blinks her eyes, changes expressions, carries on a conversation, and has orgasms. These dolls will start around $10,000 and go up from there. But you can't put a price tag on happiness, right? Well, that's exactly what the CEO of Real Doll is trying to create. Mac McMullen told The Times that he is creating a girlfriend with whom the owner can bond, a real relationship with a not real object. I imagine showing up for a date with a can of Valvoline rather than a bouquet of roses.
Do vegans swallow?
You ask the most random questions. I'm sure the nice ones swallow.
Some even claim that sex bots can help prevent the rape of women or child abuse, but experts argue that the machines could actually reinforce sexual disorders like pedophilia and make it more likely for someone to want to act out their desires on real people. But as artificial intelligence is becoming increasingly sophisticated, there have been a trail of legal, moral, ethical, and social concerns that have not been discussed. Amy Van Weisenberg, assistant professor of ethics at the University of Delft and co-founder of the Foundation for Responsible Robotics, says that there isn't a conversation happening in the general public about what is acceptable, permissible, and what should be promoted when it comes to sex robots.
We wanted to point out what was happening both in the world of the technology development as well as in the humanities, in the academic sphere, you know, what ethicists and philosophers were saying about these things, to bring these opinions together and to really start to engage the public on thinking about where we want this technology to go.
Robin McKenzie, director of law and ethics at Kent Law School in the UK, says that there is little law here and legislators may have to regulate sex bots for safety and health concerns.
We've been talking today about the challenges that we face in ensuring that the rule of law applies online as well as offline. We've been talking about the challenges that some of the great specialists here at the AFP face when they seek to get over the barriers that encryption places in the way of them finding out what terrorists are plotting, what drug traffickers are up to, what people who are exploiting children online are planning. We need to ensure that the internet is not used as a dark place for bad people to hide their criminal activities from the law. And the Australian Federal Police must have the powers as do all our other intelligence and law enforcement agencies, to enforce the law online as well as offline.
According to the latest WikiLeaks Vault 7 release, the CIA is allegedly using a hacking tool to redirect text messages on Android cell phones. RT's Natasha Sweet has more on how this tactic is being deployed.
It's called HiRise, and according to WikiLeaks, this technology enables the CIA to redirect text messages. The latest Vault 7 release claims this malware has the ability to steal data from a user's smartphone and is then transmitted to the CIA host. WikiLeaks describes HiRise as an Android application for mobile devices running Android 4.0 to 4.4. The 12 batches of documents also reveals that HiRise has the ability to authenticate secure internet communications. Now, this application appears as an app called TideCheck. It must be run once when first installed, and after a reboot, it'll reportedly run automatically. And another twist, according to the documents, is the password to install the app is Inshallah. In Arabic, it means God willing. As you may recall, WikiLeaks has been releasing findings from Vault 7 since March. What sets HiRise apart is its ability to steal data from a user's smartphone transmitter to the CIA, all without the use of the internet.
The United Nations Security Council is considering imposing more sanctions on North Korea after the country launched an intercontinental ballistic missile earlier this month. And North Korea isn't happy. The country's foreign ministry told the Korean Central News Agency it will take corresponding measures if that happens. The North called it, quote, a fatal mistake to assume it would tolerate more sanctions, but it didn't exactly say what it would do in response. U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley has tried to get China and Russia on board with a new UN resolution that would impose tougher restrictions on North Korea. The goal is to curb the country's nuclear and long-range missile activities. According to Reuters, President Donald Trump is now considering putting sanctions on Chinese companies that help North Korea's economy. China is the North's closest ally and its main supplier of food, weapons, and other goods. But Trump has blamed China's President Xi Jinping for not doing enough to stop North Korea.
Probably he could do a little bit more, but we'll find out.
A NATO naval exercise involving 8 of its members has begun in Bulgaria's Black Sea zone. The drill, entitled Breeze, includes 20 ships, 4 aircraft, 2 helicopters, 1 submarine, and about 1,700 troops. The Royal Navy's air defence destroyer, HMS Duncan, the Turkish frigate Yildirim, and the Bulgarian frigate Drazi are just 3 of the vessels taking part in the exercise. The primary aim of the 10-day drill is to improve interoperability and interaction during a maritime crisis response operation. The Bulgarian Navy started holding the Breeze drill in 1993 with the participation of 3 visiting warships.
It's been a year since Turkey's failed coup, and President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is still purging the public sector. Almost 7,400 public employees were dismissed late Friday. That pushes the total number of law enforcement, military, academics, public servants, and others fired since the coup to over 150,000. Another 50,000 people have been arrested. Most of those people are accused of having ties to the Gulen movement, which Turkey declared a terrorist organization in 2016. It was founded and is run by Fethullah Gulen, a Turkish cleric living in the US. Erdogan blames Gulen for the attempted coup. Gulen has denied any involvement. After the failed coup, Erdogan declared a state of emergency in Turkey, which is what allows the government to rule by decree. The state of emergency is still in place.
The sound of gunfire in Rio de Janeiro is getting louder. Almost every day, there are gun battles between drug gangs and the police, with stray bullets hitting bystanders. That's why Amnesty International created the website Fogo Cruzado, or Crossfire. The platform tracks in real time the locations where shootings are taking place. It is based on eyewitness, media and police accounts. It is also available as a mobile app.
We are looking for how we can solve this, but we don't have money to plan the situation. And when I say we, I'm talking about the government, that it's completely broken.
A second app called Onde Tem Tiroteio, OTT, or Where the Shootouts Are, was created by a group of friends. Its alerts reach about 3 million people, nearly half of Rio de Janeiro's population.
The situation was going so bad that we needed to do something. Right? So from the bottom of our hearts, our intention is not to have 1 million likes, but to save 1 million lives.
According to data from Rio Security Secretariat, the number of people killed by police in shootouts in the first 5 months of this year jumped nearly 50% compared to the same period last year, totaling 480 deaths. The two apps recorded between 10 and 14 shootouts per day in July alone.
We are living in a situation where getting back home safely depends on luck, and you never know.
Head for the hills because the aliens are coming. That's what some are claiming after people around the world were left flummoxed by what appears to be ring-shaped UFOs floating in the sky. The startling images were captured in Yorkshire, appearing to be some sort of smoke vortex. But before you run to stock up your bunker, we may have a scientific explanation for all this. While there were no reports of a fire in the area, nor does it appear to be weather-related, author Nigel Watson told the Daily Mail that it appears to be from a cannon, shot for part of a war event. UFO expert Nick Pope agreed, saying it was likely caused by a pyrotechnic, which makes sense since there was apparently a war reenactment taking place nearby. Wow, so some antique weapon created a sci-fi-looking vessel?
Researchers discovered that a herpes virus similar to the Epstein-Barr virus that infects humans has been discovered in mountain gorillas. According to scientists at the University of California, Davis, the finding could aid in the conservation of critically endangered mountain gorillas. The researchers examined saliva found on plants chewed by mountain gorillas in Rwanda and Uganda. They discovered the gorillas have their own version of this herpes virus. It has little risk to healthy gorillas and is generally dormant, but the virus can be a threat to gorilla infants. This is similar to the Epstein-Barr virus in human infants and children with HIV/AIDS.
Tonight, those powerful storms moving east, threatening millions. It's 4 p.m. and the same storm system moving through the country is now reaching New York City. Severe thunderstorm watches are in effect through much of the night across the mid-Atlantic. This time-lapse showing severe weather moving through Washington, D.C. Blinding rain for Virginia drivers. East of Columbus, Ohio, high water shutting down part of Interstate 70 today. Parts of the Midwest reeling from multiple rounds of rain. Our Alex Perez, north of Chicago, the governor warning of possible evacuations.
Here in Gurnee, Illinois, residents are on high alert. More than 100 homes and businesses already flooded, and the river here expected to continue slowly rising until tomorrow.
Residents in the area trying to keep that water out. And David, the threat of severe storms continues through tonight. The roads already slick and potentially dangerous for travelers. David.
Gio Benitez with us. Gio, thank you. Let's get right to meteorologist Rob Marciano tracking it all. He's live along the West Side Highway tonight. Hey, Rob.
Hi, David. Just a few more hours of rough weather. Our nation's capital really getting hit the hardest. Take a look at the radar there. Some rough storms moving through Maryland and Delaware. These have 50 to 60 mile-an-hour wind gusts. And the ongoing flood threat up the Lehigh Valley into the Finger Lakes. Very saturated ground there. This cold front's going to nudge those storms offshore and drier air moving down to the south. But then it stalls, so more pop-up thunderstorms in Florida and across the Gulf Coast into the southeast tomorrow. But the real severe stuff, once again, in through the upper Great Lakes. Wisconsin, which has had a tough week, is going to get hit hard, I think, again tomorrow.